Recording. Q. This is the, let's see, it's the meeting of the admin and finance committee. It is Monday, July 11th, and it's 2 o'clock. So shall we have a,
Roll call?
yeah, roll call. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Winding up my brain.
Director Edwards,
Here,
Director Paul,
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here, I think.
All members are present.
Are there any additions and corrections to the agenda? Not that we know of at this time. Is there any public that would like to make a comment about issues that are not on this agenda?
Here's Dave just joined us. Hello, Dave.
I see no members of the public in attendance.
Okay, thank you. So we have a number of action items, and the first is the committee meeting minutes from June 13th. This committee, any comments or corrections?
I haven't noticed anything to correct.
well, I'll move approval.
Second,
Okay, shall we take a vote?
Director Edwards,
Approval,
Director Paul,
yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
So, Dave, do you want to talk about this one? The
What are we on?
JEA.
So now, yeah, we're up to the
Oh,
renewal.
JEA. Okay, yeah, I see it. I need to go back and forth. Yes, so the legislative committee met without both JEA, which is this item, and the Ferguson Group, which is the next item. Discussed whether now is the time to get out for an RFQ and to hire new people, or give it another year. We decided, given another year, hold JEA's feet a little bit more to the fire on getting some action on things. We're in the midst of a funding request through the WRDA, the Water Resource Development Act, with a $20 million total that got into the congressional budget discussions, and that one is expected to get approved. And so if it makes it all the way through, the Ferguson Group remains a very important ally in carrying that forward. And they've also, at our request, shifted more of their attention to some watershed legislation and programs, so maybe we can get some money out of there. JEA has been working with us on special legislation, as well as some of the outreach to Laird. And so we've got some things in the works with them as well, not the least of which was that recent success with the $4.8 million, which should get dispersed, we think, in and around October. I'm working with Lori Johnson of JEA on how exactly to get that done, since we've only pulled money down from the IRWM grant program. So all in, legislative committee agreed to continue. I have a little bit to add on the Ferguson Group when we hit the next item, but this, one of the things that we've already started talking about with JEA is specific legislation to get state monies for protected groundwater levels or other replenishment water for the Seaside Basin. And we're starting to look at models for what that could look like and draft some legislative language. This would be for submittal around the first of next calendar year. All the bills are due in by the end of February for the next Assembly and Senate cycle. So we'll start work on that here this summer. So with that, the recommendation was to approve, and then we're just asking you to review it as you did all those other June contracts.
Yeah, sounds like if you decide to hire someone else. We should see if John Laird needs a job. So successful. Any questions from the board?
Through the chair, just have a couple of brief comments. First of all, Dave's, your memos, really describe very well what both sets of consultants do. So I thank you for that. And as Dave said, we had a discussion, we felt like it is our responsibility to periodically review the contracts. Are they providing the services we need, and is it good value? And, the legislative committee, we ended up feeling with a lot of certainty, I think, that they are providing valuable services for us. I have to say, as a new director, it took me a while to form an opinion on whether they were good. I just didn't know enough at first. And anyway, at this point, I do feel like they are providing services that we need, and valuable ones, and that we should renew the contract. So so I am for recommending approval of both contracts.
I'll second it.
Let's go out to the public and see if there's anyone here.
If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I have only one member of the public in attendance, and I see no raised hands.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, let's take a vote.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Do you call my name? Can't hear you.
We lose the sound. Yeah, we're not
I think
hearing.
we lost the sound,
Yeah.
but I'll say yes. No sound, Sarah.
That's a problem.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Chair Anderson, that was a yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
So this next item, item 3, for similar reasons, the recommendation is to issue a contract to the Ferguson Group. The additional item I wanted to point out is that they've dropped their annual retainer by $24,000 a year to from $8,000 a month to $6,000 a month, because they feel both the desire to keep the business, obviously, but understand our position as well, that we're probably going to be a little less active now that Pure Water Monterey has kind of reached its, we'll find out in a couple months whether it's gotten through the expansion phase. And we've got our last application in under the federal Title 16 grant possibility. So there'll be less money to chase for that project in Washington. And if the WRDA bill that I mentioned earlier gets through, pulling money off that $20 million cap will come at little bits at a time. And so we'll be identifying other projects, but chances are we'll already be under contract with a loan from the EPA for the expansion. So we won't be able to apply any WRDA monies or future grant monies very easily, other than what we've already applied for. So, I think that they recognize that maybe we were contemplating no representation in Washington, but if we were going to have some, they wanted to make sure they won the business. And as I've mentioned, I've been very satisfied with them when we've had work for them to do.
So you still see a reason to contract with them, even though you have less needs?
Well, yeah, because that WRDA bill, the 20 million is ongoing, and navigating our way through that's going to require meetings both locally with the San Francisco-based Corps of Engineers and then federally. So we'll have to go back on that, but under the assumption that it makes it through Congress. we're a little unclear. It looks like it may not get to a vote for approval till after the midterms in November. But yeah, the answer is yes on that. And then some of these newer or new to us watershed programs or things that we want to deal with. But I'll share with you two things. When we talked about just dropping federal representation as a whole, you know, Suresh and I have both agreed that it seems like a lot of money until you get like 19 million for your project. And then it seems like a drop in the bucket. And then the fact that they've decreased that retainer a little bit is good. I think that we should just keep going and see how it goes for us. But at some point, it's diminishing returns. You know, you could eat up 19 million pretty quickly at 100,000 a year. Well, not quickly, but it's been worth it.
Yeah.
And we've got the proof that it's worth it. You know, who's responsible for the 4.8 on the state level? And less JEA and more John Laird, but JEA is going to make sure we get it and guide us through the process of how to get it, which is not an easy task either. So, and all these things pay off. I always say, like in JEA's case, when we actually passed legislation back in 2014, you know, we went to a bazillion committee meetings and had to meet with committee consultants, and they really earned their keep when we have something special for them to do. So, you know, the hard part is you don't always have a steady stream of things going on, and that's, you know, a little bit on us. And I think that's what Director Edwards was pointing out. Let's put them to work. So,
Thank you. We have a motion.
I move approval.
I'll
I
second
move that we
it.
recommend approval to the board of renewing the contract.
Second,
Uh, So I don't know if everybody sees this, but I have two Karen Pauls. One looks like
Yeah.
Karen and one looks like.
yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
One
going
looks
on?
like Alvin. One's on Alvin. Your name says Karen Paul.
Oh,
oh
huh.
yeah, I see it now. I wasn't paying too much attention.
Yeah, it's because we look so much alike. Yeah.
Okay, we've got approval. Let's have a vote.
Director Paul,
Yes,
Director Edwards,
Yes,
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
So it looks like you're up, Suresh.
So the next item is the treasurer's report for the month of May. During the month, we did write checks in the amount of $633,000. Of that, 22,900 were rebate checks. And Exhibit 4A, which is on the next page, that shows the actual treasurer's report. You can see we started the month with $20.4 million in the bank, and we ended the month with $21.2 million in the bank, and all of the separate categories are listed for those accounts, the checking account, the money market. We continue to invest in our LAIF and multi-bank securities on staggered CDs. And then we also report on the reclamation project, which had $92,000 in the bank. That's just for reporting purposes. Exhibit 4B and C are the check register and payroll register. And then Exhibit D is the unaudited financial statements for the month of May. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I do not have any questions.
no questions.
I don't have any either, this report. Good job. Should we take this out to the public? Is there any public?
Yes, however, there are no raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we recommend adoption, that the board adopt the report.
Second,
Okay, let's have a vote.
Director Paul,
Yes,
Director Edwards,
yes,
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, John Lear. This is an exciting report.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my microphone is having problems earlier, so it's good to hear. Yeah, this is offshoot of something we've been trying to, we were actually had this ambition prior to COVID, and then during COVID, all of these types of classes and learning opportunities went away, and we'd been watching. The CSUMB has had the drone camp since about 2007, as well as they formed an initiative with UCSC to try to promote the use of drones, unmanned drones, for collection of land use type data. And the district and its staff in the water resources and the environmental resources division has been coming up with areas that we want to try to move into this newer type of technology. And we have identified the Carmel Lagoon Vegetation Management Program as the program that we want to try to onboard this unmanned drone data collection program, and establish this as a bridge to trying to work more with mapping of riparian corridor along the Carmel River, as well as creating digital elevation models of infrastructure with the Pure Water Monterey, as far as backflush pits and grading and different types of stuff. But specifically to this program, in the budget, we had put $10,000 to establish a drone monitoring program to apply to the Carmel River vegetation monitoring. And myself and two other of our hydrologists in the Water Resources Division attended a week-long drone camp at CSUMB, where we had hands-on experience in flying, collecting data, and interpreting data, as well as establishing contacts with two of the initiatives at CSUMB and UCSC, as well as Drone Camp alumni. We have access to these programs at the different universities and their office hours dedicated to helping us trying to establish this program. With the $10,000, the district will be able to purchase 2 drones that have red, green, blue cameras associated with them, as well as the GPS technology equipment that will allow us to map land use down to less than a centimeter in resolution. What we plan to do is to go out and fly multiple times the lagoon and map the differences in vegetation. Our mitigation program established the vegetation monitoring program to look between drought and flood cycles to see what types of vegetation, whether they're wetland vegetation or upland, more drier vegetation, and the proliferation of different species, to see if changes in river maintenance or river operations changed the habitats of these different plant zones. In my staff note, and more so in the mitigation report, you can see, if you amalgamate kind of the last 10 years, where the maintenance of the lagoon has changed from more natural style to building up of the sand berm against the houses there on Scenic Drive, and then opening the lagoon. It's much more of a managed type situation, where our old transects mainly are underwater so much more, so that we don't see the variation in upland species versus wetland species as much. So we're trying to spread out across the whole lagoon, and as the staff note says, try to build a program that can adapt to these changing management styles of the lagoon. Whether it's in the future, we don't know if there's going to be a barrier built, a barrier wall. And so it gives us an opportunity, we think, to make a program better and onboard some new technology with the help of some of the agencies that have built these new programs to help districts just like ours. And so with the $10,000, it should be an entrance, our first foray into the unmanned drone data collection. And we'll be able to fly and create maps, digital photographs that we'll be able to bring back into our district computers and map what we think are the different types of the different types of vegetations. And then we'll go back out and field truth those and make sure that we're actually able to verify what we're mapping. And so it is kind of an exciting point and something we've been trying to do for a little while. And finally, now that we're out of COVID and getting restaffed, able to take it on. And so that concludes my report.
Do you have any questions, committee members? Karen?
You're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry. John, did the training cover how to record and manage the data you collect with the drones, or have you already put together a system for tracking that data and analyzing it, or is that to be done?
Yeah, to the second part of your question, the systems have not been put into place, but we did receive training on how to do it, down to building of flight logs and which serial numbers of batteries goes into which drones, as far as maintaining the data structures. There were many seminars on that. And so as a component of the class, of course, a curated exercise where we went out, flew, took pictures, uploaded them, came back to the lab and stitched them together. It worked perfectly, but it was a lab. So, as far as us getting out and doing it, they're willing to come and help us when we run into problems. I'm not ignorant enough to think I'm going to be able to go do exactly what they showed us the first time, but I think we have the technology, and no, we have not practically applied it to us, but we have a cookbook, if you will, of mainly their message was, we did this and it didn't work, so don't try this, is what they spent a week telling us that.
Well, that's good that you have the resources. They invited you to call.
Yeah, they have open hours on Mondays and Wednesdays available to kind of the people that have sought education through this program.
So, through the chair, so you're asking for two. So you're gonna fly both of them at the same time, or one is a backup?
One is more of a backup. Yeah, you would want to keep one in the air. Usually what they recommended is two people out there with one person flying the drone and one person managing that, making sure the batteries are charged, making sure that the data cards are coming off of the drones as the drone comes back. The drones can fly for about 25 minutes, and so there'll need to be multiple flights to cover the area. In order to get the data you need, you have to have overlap of 85 to 90% of the lines of photographs that you take, so you can stitch the photographs together. So it's one person really flying the drone and one person taking the notes and one person making sure that you're downloading the data cards and making sure the data you're getting off the data cards are actually real, and then verifying that. And then, yeah, one drone would be for a backup drone in case one were to crash or to fail, so that you wouldn't have to discard your work to that point if you were to have something happen to one drone.
Okay, and now let me say, if I heard you right, one to fly, one to take care of the drone, and somebody else to take information, or is that the same person?
It's one to fly, and it's one to take information and take notes. So two people would do it. Currently, when we go out, we do use two people also, because we're out using laser level and survey equipment anyways. So it's not a duplicate. It's not doubling people in the field. But it is, but what we haven't learned is, Usually the lagoon vegetation monitoring is a 2 to 3 day process, depending on how thick the vegetation is that year. And so we don't know without further experience. And I'm sure once we get more practiced, we've been told we should expect to get the data we need in a day, in 1 day. You know, there's all kinds of things that we learn where you need to get out there early in the morning, plan your flight patterns, and then you need to wait till what's called solar noon, where the sun is directly above you so you can get the best data, so you're not generating shadows. And so there's many different things that you're planning for to arrange to get the best data you can. And so we won't be as efficient learning as we will be once we get it down, but that's the goal.
Okay,
I have a question, John. And I don't know if you'll need to do this, but will the data that you get from these drone flights be able to be compared to what you used to be getting using the transects and the,
Yeah, the idea is to fly along the transects and look at those and compare them to what we have in the transects. We would do what was called the transect quadrat, where you would go along a transect and you'd throw a quadrant out, you know, in a randomly area around there, and you would kind of look at the different species you would see in that. You know, we do want to compare back to and look at those quadrats, but right now with the changing of the lagoon to be more wet, you know, most of our transects are largely like blackberries right now because they've all been flooded.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's what the note said. And
yeah.
I didn't know how important it was to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's in our allocation EIR from the 90s that the district will track the changes in vegetation.
Uh-huh.
And so it's, you know, part of the mitigation program. And yeah, it's something that, you know, we've identified as needing to change, and an opportunity to try to change it with this unmanned drone technology.
One other question. How long do these drones last? Is this an annual expenditure or what? I have no idea what the life history of these machines is.
Yeah, I think that the piece of the drones that wear out the quickest are, of course, the batteries. You can replace the batteries. The drones themselves, from what I can see, seem to have probably a 3 to 4 year support life cycle, where a manufacturer will come out with the drone and that model will be viable for 3 to 4 years, and then they'll come out with a new model, and then they won't manufacture propellers or batteries or anything more. So it will be a how long can you buy the parts to keep it viable?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And related question through the chair, if I may.
Sure.
So where do we go for repairs? Will the manufacturer also do repairs?
They're pretty they're made to crash, so lots of the pieces will break away at critical points, and they're pretty modular. If they break, I'm not sure you would per se take it into the mechanic as compared to just buying a new piece and putting it back together.
I see. Okay. And how long have drones been used to collect this type of data? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, they were cutting edge technology when I started my career in 1999. So they're ready. We're ready to bring them on.
Huh. Very interesting. And I hope that doing the course was fun.
It's interesting. I hadn't been to school for a while, so I'll tell you it was tiring too.
Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
Shall we go out to the public? and see if anybody has their hand raised.
I see no raised hands.
Thank you, Sarah. So we can go ahead with a vote.
So you think the 10,000 is enough, and you come back to the board and start asking for some more money, you probably have words from me. So I want to make sure we get it out of the way. You sure you don't want to put $1,000 for contingency, because you start crashing and burning out there and asking for more money to make it. You know, it only take 4, but I'm just be one of them saying no. So you want to clear that up now?
I think 10,000 from what I have gathered talking is enough for us to understand what we have, and it will be our goal at that point in time to come up with what's more of an annual support budget with built into it capital replacement, which would be, say, one of them is irreparable. We would replace that as long as we can stick to the same model number. But it also depends too, if right now we're just taking pictures, and if we later want to go to different types of multispectral cameras, which I want to just start and get the data flowing and do something simple. And so maybe later I'll ask for more money, but not now.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, Director Edwards,
Approval.
Director Paul,
Yes,
Chair Anderson.
yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. This was a complicated one, but it's up to you too, John.
Yeah, thank you. This one is a slight change from the past, which is a change in the monitoring network of the Carmel River ASR program. What I did, I know it was a little lengthy, but I wanted to include the letter from the regional board for the committee to kind of understand the way that those communications work with the district, whereas we had been notified that they would like us to move into this general permit a couple years ago, and we worked with the board and the committee to apply, and then were accepted to the program. And this is the letter we got letting us know that we were accepted to the program here in February of this year. We had conversations, a couple back and forths, clarifications, and then this was the program that the regional board passed for us to enroll into. And so changes a little bit from what we would call our old standard operations. And it now requires quarterly reports and quarterly monitoring. In the new program, the way that the general permit is set up is you have to monitor what are called on-site monitor wells, which our district has. We have monitor wells at the Seaside Middle School and Santa Margarita site that we can monitor quarterly. And then the permit says that you must identify a couple off-site monitor wells to gauge the effect of your program on the entirety of the aquifer system. And so what that involves is picking a monitor well that is known to be within the influence of the injected water, and then picking a monitor well that should not be under the influence of the injected water from the program. And so going through with the regional board technical staff, we had identified the PCA East deep well, which is located just outside of the football and baseball fields of Seaside High, which is outside of the influence of injected Carmel River water. So that could be an aquifer monitoring well. That well was actually part of the previous monitoring program and is therefore already equipped with pumps and the ability to obtain samples from it. The new component of this permit was a monitor well that was under the influence of the injected water, which was not a previous component of the old permit. So going through the available wells with the technical staff at the regional board, we identified a well that's called Peralta Test Well. It is a well that is within 20 feet of the Peralta production well. It was a well that was drilled by the district, I think in 1990 or 1991. It was the first well that actually found the Santa Margarita, and then the Peralta well was drilled and became a new allocated source of water. And I think Director Edwards will remember that history from that point in time. And so the Peralta test well still remains there as a monitor well. It was used for water levels in the previous monitoring program. However, in this program, it has been identified as an offsite monitor well that requires quarterly water quality sampling. And so that's the new component that came out of enrolling this program in the new program. So we have a new site that needs to generate water quality data on a quarterly basis. So what we did then was work with Martin Feeney, who is someone we have on retainer to help us with this type of retrofit of wells and monitor wells. We've used him for Pure Water Monterey, if you remember, to help us with the commissioning of the deep injection wells when that project was coming on. And so we've worked with him and our regulators to come up with a satisfactory plan to generate water quality samples. The Peralta test well is a bit of a strange well because usually monitor wells are smaller diameter 2-inch wells that are easier to purge and get samples from. The Peralta test well is a 10-inch PVC well that was installed at the time in the 1990s that way to not only understand the aquifer water quality, but understand the potential performance of the aquifer if you were to drill the Peralta production well next to it, which did get drilled based on the performance testing that was done on Peralta test. What that really means is we need to install more of a robust permanent pump into that well because the regional board requires evacuation of 3 casing volumes of water and stabilization of field parameters prior to sampling the well. And so in going through the equipment that was available and the retrofits that would need to be made, including working with Cal-Am to understand, because the district drilled and owns the test well on the Cal-Am yard, but Cal-Am owns the yard, and it is an area of the yard that Cal-Am frequently uses to mobilize and stockpile well equipment when Peralta test needs work on. So Cal-Am request was that any work we do be done so it would be subgrade so that area in the yard could still be used to stage equipment when they wanted to work on their well. So we would, if you've seen the Peralta site, it's a small little knoll and it drops off very quickly on all, there's not a lot of flat space. And so they didn't want us to take any of their flat space away from them. And so in working with Martin and different drillers and getting ideas from the different drillers, we were able to find solicit ideas from different drillers and identify the one that we feel was the most cost effective, that would install a subgrade vault with a permanent pump that would allow us to obtain the sample. And so we've been working with the board and keeping them, of course, appraised of our progress Obviously, we were not able to collect a sample from this well in the first quarter of this water year, just learning from this in February. And they said, that's fine as long as you're moving on this. Then Cal-Am came in and did their intertie. And so they were working in that area. We weren't able to work in that area while they were doing that. Now that Cal-Am is done with the intertie, we'd like to move forward and retrofit this well so we can bring it in and start generating water quality so we can comply with our new permit. And so I can take any questions related to that.
I have a question, John. I have to say I was a little confused with the language, and if you would just, which well are we talking about for this downhole? Is it the Peralta test or the Peralta monitoring?
The,
for monitoring.
yeah, the Peralta test is the well that's been identified as the aquifer monitoring well. So they're one and the same.
Okay. It's hard for me to pick that up. So the Peralta test is now the monitoring, and it's the one with the 10-inch diameter.
That's true.
Okay, and it's not used for both. It's used just for monitoring now.
It's never been used as a production well. It was used in our previous permit as a water level monitoring well. And if you look through the letter that I attached from the regional board, it is listed as a water level monitoring well. So that's the same as the old permit, but the change is now it's listed as a water quality monitoring well. And so it requires new equipment to be installed in it. It has the equipment to monitor the water level, as we've done that for the last decade and a half.
Thank you very much. That's
So is this reimbursable from Cal-Am, or this all on us?
Well, thank you, Director Alvin. This falls underneath the amended and restated ASR agreement. So any work that is done in order to achieve compliance, in order to bank water for ASR, is subject to that agreement. And so while this work will not come out of our pockets per se, it does come out of the ratepayers' pockets, but it will be reimbursable through Cal-Am.
Okay.
okay. Director Paul, any questions?
No,
Okay. I'd like to move to forward this to the board for consideration.
I'll second it.
And now let's see if anybody in the public wants to comment or ask questions about this issue.
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Okay, doke. Thank you. Let's have a vote.
Director Paul,
yes,
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-0.
thank you. Now, okay, we're on informational items. This was a big packet, but interesting. Okay,
I have a question about number 8. The Measure J spending. If no one has a question about number 7. And it's just, I noticed, looking at the amounts spent, that, in some accounts we spent all or almost all of what we had, and other accounts we didn't. And so when we shift money around to pay money where we've incurred the expenses, overall, I didn't do these calculations. Overall, are we pretty much on target with expenses in relation to what's been appropriated? Suresh, I see you're nodding.
Yes, Director Paul. So if you'll see the total in kind of like the highlighted, that's the subtotal for that first section.
mhm.
Approved amount was 1.9, prior spending was 1.1, and so we've got about $722,000 left from what the board had authorized us to spend.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
It just that the categories we kind of like estimated what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And the only one I see with a negative number there is the district legal counsel.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw that. But overall, I guess maybe this is also a question for Dave Laredo, is the amount that we've set aside in the budget seems adequate as far as we know at this point. Oh, you're muted, Dave Laredo. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I believe that we're on track. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the current budget, I think we put 500,000 in. We were going to bring back the approval to proceed on appraisal services.
Mhm.
And we've already got quite a bit remaining within those. And I think that's because we went for approval back in roughly August or so of 2020. And then the LAFCO process bogged us down for about a year. So I think we're in pretty good shape. We're going to bring the topic to the board anyway for approval, just so people see what we're up to. But I think we've already approved all that. So yeah, within the context of that 500,000 in the budget, we'll probably have more than enough to do what needs to get done this coming year.
Good, just thank you. Thanks to all of you. Yeah. Just keeping an eye on it.
Well, especially since typically we haven't budgeted until we know that we're going to do some work, and then we come to you for budget and it comes out of reserves. So putting it in the budget this year was recognition that we knew we wanted to do something, but
Mhm,
so there won't be any surprises, I suspect.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, good to anticipate to the extent we can. Yeah.
Any other questions on the informational items? It's like we don't have them. So
Are we on to the agenda?
anything, yeah, the draft of the agenda coming up. Anybody have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me give you some highlights on the agenda
Okay,
if we're ready. The closed session item number 1 is that report to the entire board on our cybersecurity assessment
mhm.
that Suresh moved from last month, because last month had all of those annual items on it. And this one,
We remember.
and then the second closed session item is related to a letter that I thought got distributed to the full board, requesting an adjustment to the MOU that was negotiated 3 years ago. And we've done some math and we have a recommendation. Then we get to item 12, which is a mid-year update on the strategic goals adopted back at the beginning of the calendar year. And then item 15, there was some very good discussion at the Water Demand Committee about this 4th building on the Ryan Ranch campus. So that will probably warrant some more discussion. Montage intends to attend our board meeting, so if questions are needed. And then item 25 is coming off at this point in time, because there's been no change to the trackers worth reporting, and we did not get a report from those 2 entities at our last LegCom meeting because of the discussion about contracts with them. So, we don't have any of their materials updated. And that's kind of it. So it's not a deep, heavy meeting, which I think is appropriate for summer months, right? And if anything comes up, I'll be sure to contact the chair if we need to add it. But we're trying to get all the staff notes out by the end of the day tomorrow, So I think this is pretty much locked in the way I just discussed.
Thank you.
I have a comment about the consent calendar. And what triggered this thought is Director Alvin's, what's the word? His reminders that about letting the public know what the district is doing and being transparent. That he frequently reminds us. And I think a few of these that maybe we should consider taking off the consent agenda just to let the public know a little bit about what the district's doing, since it doesn't get any attention on the consent agenda. And those would be 4 and 5, the renewal of the contracts with the 2 lobbying groups, and the cybersecurity report, that's number 6, and the one about the drones. Maybe also even number 9 about the sampling. I mean, it's very technical. And I don't think we should do any long staff report on these, but just something brief to let the public know, the work that's being done and where the ratepayers' money's going. So I'd be interested to know what the other directors think of that.
Well, Chair, for me, if you think it's important for the public, and I agree with you on that, you can pull them and make them quick action items. So I do agree with that. If I seen something on here that, yeah, cybersecurity, they ought to know that we're working on it.
Yeah.
And
And I don't want to burden staff unnecessarily. I just want to get, let the public know a little bit about this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have seen other agencies do this a little differently, not pulling the matters from the consent, but after the consent calendar has been adopted, turning it to the general manager to provide a highlight of the items that were approved on consent.
Mhm.
So that would bridge that gap, not necessarily to create a debate, but to say, fine, the consent calendar was approved, but along with that is the approval of the contracts for the JEA, Legislative Administrative Support, and Ferguson Group, cybersecurity, and so on. And so that might be another model that you might consider.
That seems like a very good idea because Dave does those things so well. So it could be incorporated into the general manager's report.
Yeah, or just immediately after the approval of the consent calendar to just entertain a quick overview by the general manager as to the items that were just approved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and keep in mind the staff notes are there, so the story is there if someone cares to. So what we're really doing is just calling people's attention to it.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. What
Yeah.
do you think, Dave Stolt, of Dave Laredo's
Yeah, we
suggestion?
can do that.
I think
Okay.
so too. A summary, it's kind of just a summary to highlight. Obviously not the kind of information that we have here because people can look that up online, but.
Well, and it could be very short, just like a couple of bullet points for each one.
Uh-huh.
And then, and if you're interested in more, direct your attention to the staff notes for those items. But like John's point of, bringing the district a little bit into the 21st century with the drone program and, just letting people know that there's new technology and there's a purpose for it and we're embracing it and we're getting out there. And if you want to know more, check out the staff note. Same thing with the 2 lobbyists, because as we've talked about, they've helped make it rain. And a reminder to the public that, there have been big benefits and we're going to continue. So yeah, I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Just highlight them.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's a good idea.
And especially tell them that one decided to take a little cut and the other one decided to build it up. Just to put it out there that we are looking and you are checking. So.
Yep.
Sound good to me.
Also-
Another new way of doing things.
You can
Good.
also add and highlight how much money we got for the recent effort, which was
Right.
substantial. And since
Right.
nobody reads the paper around here, let's see it.
Yeah,
Robert?
it is. It's interesting because you often get, why do you do this? You're a
Exactly.
sleepy little backwater on the Central Coast.
But we get forgotten if we don't do these things.
Well,
Um,
and we've had the good fortune, just when you think about it, of having the last Senate President Pro Tem and potentially the next Senate Pro Tem. And then it's apparent that Robert Rivas, while not our direct representative, we've included him in so much Pure Water Monterey related things that we've got a relationship, and he's probably the next Speaker of the Assembly. And our folks have a super good relationship with them, just as we've got a pretty super relationship with Senator Laird, and as does John Arriaga. So, all these things have come home to roost for us already, and there's reason to kind of keep it going. So we don't want to, talk openly about relationships so much, but now's a very good time with the people that we have.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Is there any reason to not highlight the cybersecurity report?
Well, I think the report that you're going to see publicly is going to be the shortened, diluted version.
Okay,
Suresh has requested that what goes in your closed session packet be physical, not even scanned, because it'd be too easy to just pick it off if it's stored in a folder somewhere. And so the details, we don't want to say too much, but
Yeah.
I think the fact that we've undertaken the exercise and that we're following through on, a number of the recommendations needs to be emphasized.
mhm.
so 2 questions about that. When are we going to be able to read the full report? And there needs to be a way for directors to know what it's okay to discuss and what it's publicly and what is. So is there some way that it's going to be marked on the full copy so that we know what not to talk about publicly?
Yeah,
way
the entire report, the detailed report will be marked confidential. So basically, out of the 150-page report, it'll all basically be confidential. The report that's going to be attached with item 6, that's for public consumption. And so that's the executive summary, which is, I believe, I want to say about 12 or 15 page.
Okay, so you think that's enough it'll be clear to directors what it's okay to talk about publicly from those, okay.
From the short version, that makes sense. And that's a lot. 15
Yeah.
pages, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's the one that was shared with the previously administrative committee. And then the longer version has not been shared publicly at all. So
Yeah.
that's going to come to you, included in your board packet on, I believe it's coming out either Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay,
That is going to be marked, like Dave said, it's going to be physical hard copy, and it'll be marked confidential on that report.
Very good.
thank you.
And if at the meeting, anybody does inadvertently start to talk about something that shouldn't be discussed publicly, you'll just stop them.
We will
Yeah.
just let the directors know that that's something that, and we'll actually be discussing all those during the closed session anyway.
Okay, good. All right,
Sounds
thank you.
Anything else anybody wants to ask about? If not, then I guess we are adjourned at 2 minutes to 3.
Very
Good
good.
job there, Chair, staff.
Yes, very good job.
Right,
Thank you
good
all.
job. Y'all have a good week.
You too. See you later.